Have you ever wondered why somebody may be so certain, it seems, and yet so wrong? This can be in the area of philosophy, religion, sexuality, politics, issues on money, issues on relationships, and in the marriage setting in general. Why can someone be so seemingly certain and so wrong? Here are a couple thoughts I have of the most apparent things to me at this point in time, age 62 now. First of all, picture yourself 100, 200 years ago if you were going to the frontier of America or going to another country as an immigrant. If you had an incorrect belief about something very fundamental, it could be a matter of life and death. For instance, if you went on a camping trip today and you didn't pack water and you were out a week in the sunlight part of the day and it was hot, that could be a life and death matter. But these days, there are so many support mechanisms in general. When you travel anywhere, let's say, you simply pull out your cell phone, call 911. You even call an air evac to the most remote parts of Alaska oftentimes. There's all kinds of, quote, welfare benefits. There are drugs to numb your mind if you've suffered something traumatic. For instance, just yesterday, I purchased something at a gas station mart. This was 12 hours ago. I got talking with the clerk, and a year ago, she had had open heart surgery. But 2 weeks before that, she lost a daughter, age 29. The daughter had suffered diabetes and other critical health issues. And the next words out of the woman's mouth were, if it hadn't been for tranquilizers, for the anxiety that followed her daughter's death at age 29, she wouldn't have made it through. Well, why, you might ask, would you need tranquilizers unless a year later your mindset were not correct in certain ways? Some would argue. Or to some extent anyway. Given, of course, there's a time for grieving and a time of readjustment, but for many of us, we can go a whole lifetime sometimes and not readjust properly because of our thoughts, quite incorrect in nature, that is being shored up. You might call it being enabled. Likewise, if you want a hamburger today, you don't have to know how to hunt, clean and dress the animal, whatever the phraseology. You don't have to know how to store meat other than in a refrigerator. The kingpin issue talked of by some is what happens if there's a civil war or nuclear war and the cell towers go out and computers no longer can manage you getting water out of your tap even. Everything grinds to a halt, no more gas available. Then we start to see the ramifications of our stinking thinking, I believe, so to speak, and the overconfidence of what we talk of. For if you just talk whatever you wish in order to market something or to deny something so one is more comfortable, what are the downsides unless all these supports, all these shored up sources of life suddenly evaporate? Or two, pills evaporate to numb us. For instance, 3 months ago, I was talking with someone. I stayed on their farm a weekend, and they claimed something is being sprayed into the air to calm people. In other words, you might say even calm them from their stinking thinking that they're overconfident about. Yet another person I talked to 3 months ago, a physician, was telling me he believes in UFOs and that he has communicated with people from the dead and knows a number of people who have had near-death experiences and talked favorably of the other side. So you might wonder then, who has any idea of what reality is anymore if there are no consequences for talking out you know what to any great extent, until that day when the cell phone towers go down, you can't buy any more gas, and everything is shortage city. There are some say life is coming to that, at who knows when a point in time. The other kingpin matter, I believe, on my mind these days, why some people are so certain seemingly, is because of groupthink, you might say. For what do we claim to know with rather high degree of certainty? Doesn't it tend to be what those around us say, what those in the media say, what our society or sub-part of society says, what our religion says, what our family says, what we're taught to believe, not what we observe in general. In fact, we even frame our sense of reality through thinking given the words we're taught in dictionaries, and not encouraged really to create our own dictionaries, although there is information on how to do that online, or you might have been starting to do that yourself to some degree. So to me then, if one says, well, everybody else around me believes this, or larger numbers do, or surely someone would have corrected this by now, a mistake this large in this day and age, the computer day and age, internet age. So everything I hear or my viewpoint must be correct, at least as coming out of a highly sophisticated, technologically oriented, industrialized nation. How could it be otherwise? How could we have such blind spots at this point in time? And so many have the same blind spot. Well, there is, for instance, a book on the market talking about mass delusions, or I might say mass wishful thinking in certain areas, or even ways of life that we call addictions that are so commonplace nobody can quite wrap their head around it, even being an addiction, or else feel free to talk about it, one of the two. These are my thoughts then, in brief fashion, of why some people seem to be so certain and yet can be so wrong. Noting, by the way, there are, by one account, some 4,000 religions out there at present time, and have been for a long time. How can they all be correct? Can any of them be correct in all features, in fact? So, as those who would go to an AA meeting would hear, and I haven't been to an AA meeting, but if there are no consequences to our stinking thinking, our core premises that can be incorrect, then we might herald them to the moon as correct, with widely high levels of certainty for wishful thinking or marketing or influencing others in general, swaying them to our side. If the stinking thinking doesn't stink to us in the effects, at least in the short and middle term, in the long term we can numb it away with drugs and be in la-la land in our end days, then why not, I suppose we say in the back of our mind, say we're quite certain? For where's the blowback?